Hello everyone. Welcome to one more lecture of this self-knowledge course. In today's topic we will talk about the 4 kinds of Hannasmusen. Let's define then, what is a Hannasmusen? Hannasmusen is the person who has 2 centers of gravity. That is to say that he serves 2 masters, the devil and the being at the same time. This happens because sometimes we seek to serve consciousness, do good deeds, and even work on ourselves, but other times we give in to the pleasures and identifications of the ego. This fact prevents us from being able to really move forward towards the final goal, which is liberation and self-realization. Because the greater the amount of energy that we manage to release and condense, if we do not decide to go totally against the ego, it will sooner or later lead us to reverse the internal forces and lead us into error. We will then see that there are 4 kinds of Hannasmusen, since all humanity is Hannasmusen to a greater or lesser degree. And it is important that we reflect on this, and that we come to identify what type of Hannasmusen we are, so that we can get out of there. Because the greater the type of Hannasmusen, the more serious the consequences. In the first category we find all people from this outside world who don't know esotericism, nor are they interested in it. These people only have a planetary body, that is, they only have the physical and vital bodies created, but of their astral, mental and causal bodies they only have an embryo. In none of their existences have they practiced sexual transmutation, therefore, they have not crystallized energy within themselves. Such a kind of person accumulates in life a dangerous fatal something, the very activities of the ego in their psyche. We see that they have a double center of gravity, because inside they have a primary divine particle, which gives them spiritual impulses. And due to this, they seek in one way or another for something superior. In some way they seek to be good people, but the most of their time is spent simply manifesting and nurturing their different psychological defects: anger, envy, gossip, laziness, lust, greed, sadness, jealousy, vices, etc. And when the time of death comes, the only thing that survives there, and that goes from one existence to another, is a bunch of devils that have no value, that are garbage. Those are their psychological defects. When one of these people concludes their 108th existence, since they didn't work with sexual transmutation, nor with the 3 factors, they disintegrate very quickly in involution. Because since they never transmuted, their energy didn't crystallize. The second category is made up of those who already have an astral body created, and didn't die on themselves. In other words, people who, in some existence, had the knowledge of the suprasex, practiced it, and came to create the astral body for their particular use, but they didn't continue the esoteric work. They lacked continuity of purposes, because they didn't have a permanent center of gravity on their inner work. Remember that as we create the existential bodies, we develop forces, faculties and powers. But if we don't have a continuity of purposes in the search for self-realization, if we don't generate a permanent center of gravity around the practices for awakening our consciousness, if we don't decide to radically die on ourselves, to eliminate each one of our psychological selves, and especially those eyes of witchcraft, who are fascinated with the use and development of faculties, and if we don't take the firm determination to focus our time, strength, and energy on the development of our inner being, it will be our psychological defects who will end up making use of these faculties and powers, leading us to error. This is why this type of Hannasmusen commonly ends up dedicating themselves to sorcery and black magic, using the capabilities that the astral body gives them for these purposes. When they die, it is very common that in their next existence they bring certain faculties, and usually end up following, in that new existence, the same path of witchcraft and black magic. When their 108 existences conclude, they enter involution, which for them is much slower, because their astral body takes longer to disintegrate. If, for example, the Hannasmusen of the first category lasts several hundreds of years in the passage through the Dante's circles, these would take thousands of years. The third category is formed by those who fabricated their 5 solar bodies, but didn't die definitively in themselves. And this because at the moment of the decision of the path, in the 5th initiation of major mysteries, they betrayed their inner Christ by taking the path of nirvana. The path of nirvana, although it promises hundreds or perhaps thousands of years of paradisiacal happiness, is to go out through a false door. Through that path, one never comes back to the Father, and once the Dharma runs out, and the weight of the ego of the invisible moon of the person weighs too much, it makes them go down again, having to try again, from the beginning, to achieve self-realization. This kind of Hannasmusen are people who, although they like esoteric work, they lack revolution, they die selectively, they have spoiled defects that they don't want to abandon, they have many attachments that they don't want to abandon. They lack love, they sacrifice little for humanity, being able to do more for others they don't. And if they do not revolutionize themselves, if they manage to reach the point of choosing the path again, by recurrence they end up taking nirvana again. In this case the involutionary process is still much slower. They have no choice but to eliminate what they have of Hannasmusen, by dissolving the ego, or definitively devolving within the bowels of the earth in involution. Because they are practically lost cases, abortions of the cosmic mother. If we investigate in the astral on the kind of Hannasmusen we are, and we are shown that we are of this category, we must have clear that we must revolutionize ourselves, work hard on our attachments, and especially on the attachments to our ego. We must decide to die radically in ourselves, and place ourselves as an invariable goal, to achieve the intimate self-realization of our being. The fourth category is made up of the fallen thrones, the bodhisattvas, gods who let themselves fall. That is, when a being who has already achieved self-realization, becoming a conscious god, decides to throw the stone into the water, that is, dissolve all his bodies. This being decides to go back down to the physical manifestation in order to create twice as much ego, by going down twice as much as the previous time. This kind of Hannasmusen come to become true demons. But from there they will have the opportunity to get twice as much wisdom and love, to achieve higher hierarchical levels, and thereby be able to serve the universe in broader and more conscious ways. For example, a self-realized being of a certain hierarchy may be the regent of a planet of a solar system, a self-realized being of a higher hierarchy may be the regent of a sun of a solar system, one of a higher hierarchy may be the ruler of the central sun of a galaxy, and be in charge of the direction of the entire galaxy, and its solar systems, and so on. They are usually called bodhisattvas, because they renounce the joy of the absolute for love of the humanities, in order to serve better. When they go down, they are titled fallen throne, because they disappear from their throne. Then the double personality is fabricated, that of the angel and that of the demon. They start losing and turning down in successive existences, through fornication, the created bodies. They are usually people who show a lot of strength and intelligence. It is very common that in many existences they are remarkable beings in history, leaders, dictators, etc. They usually have a lot of power in the word, due to the condensed energy. Those we know as great demons, were once great beings of light of high hierarchy, who when they are fallen, drag humanities to the abyss. But when they resolve to get up, they do great works of sacrifice for humanity, helping many to rise as well. It is clear that if they don't resolve to dissolve what they have of Hannasmusen within them, they will also have to devolve within the bowels of the earth, as Moloch and many others are doing. In these cases, involution can last up to millions of years. So what is important, and what this conference invites us to, is that we begin to study and identify those details of Hannasmusen that we have, so that we dedicate to radically die in ourselves. Let's observe our Hannasmusen self in how we sometimes have the courage to practice psychological death, to meditate, to transmute our sexual energy, to sacrifice ourselves for humanity, bringing this knowledge to others. But on the other hand, we do not get the will to get out of the fascination with the things of the personality, we remain attached to our pleasures, and above all to our sufferings. We must decide to become serious and create in our lives a permanent center of gravity around psychological death, spiritual birth and sacrifice for humanity, and let nothing deviate us from the path we have set for ourselves towards the total liberation of our consciousness. So, this has been today's conference. I hope it will help you to reflect and encourage you to seek to generate a continuity of purpose that will lead you to develop a permanent center of gravity around the intimate self-realization of your being. Whatever it takes. And well, I will invite you to the next Phase B conference, 3 Types of Tantrism. There we will learn in depth about the 3 types of sexuality that exist, and we will see why the great battle between white magicians and black magicians has its roots in sex. Until next time.